Hello, my sweet, beautiful, gorgeous souls. I missed you. How are you? Tell me about your life. Even though I can't hear you, this is more like a one-way conversation. I still want to energetically know. I still want to energetically hear you because I'm so fucking excited. I'm literally vibrating right now to be recording season 2 of the Be Radically Authentic podcast. If you are watching this on YouTube, then you will see a new setup. I'm trying something new. I really didn't like the formality of the old setup in my office, and I just really wanted this to feel like two friends gabbing. That's what I wanted. That's what I want it to feel like. I want it to feel like two friends chit-chatting, even though one friend, that's me, is doing most of the chit-chatting. Maybe you're chit-chatting with me and I just can't hear you, but I really wanted to try something new. I wanted this to feel cozy. I wanted to feel cozy. I wanted to feel like you and I were sitting down having a cup of chai together. That's what I wanted it to feel like, even though I don't technically have a chai with me right now because it is 6:30 p.m. on a Friday night. Okay, can we just say it's 6:30 p.m. on a Friday night and I am excited to talk to you and record this podcast episode with you and for you and to you and all of the things regarding you. I'm so excited to talk to you. A lot of differences are going to come up in this podcast now with season 2 and maybe in the future. And every time in the past I used to do something different, I would announce it. I would announce that I was trying something new. I would announce that I was trying something different. This time, the different thing that I want to try is not announcing. I mean, I'm kind of announcing right now, but I'm not announcing what those changes are going to be because I don't know. I want to try something new. The podcast is going to hopefully feel different, sound different, and I hope you like it. That's kind of what I wanted to start off with. We are going into season 2. This is the new setup, and I like it. It makes it a little bit more complicated for me to record because I don't have to, but I have to make sure Matthew's not home because I am in our common area. I'm also not at my desk. So again, if you're watching this on YouTube, you can see my cat crawling into my lap right now. Hi, Stella. So I'm way more accessible for her. So she's probably going to be making a lot more appearances in the content because she really didn't have access to me when I was sitting up at my desk. But that's okay. Hey, people like seeing you on the Instagram, so I'm sure people will like seeing you on the YouTube and the micro content that we create from the podcast. Hey, my sweet girl. Yeah, you're purring. Second thing I want to talk about is just between you and me. We're just going to ignore that last episode, right? Where I was in my luteal phase. But everything happens for a reason. So I hit publish on that last mini episode, the season 1 finale mini episode, when I was in my feels, when I was in my luteal phase, and really let my self-sabotage and my not so favorite self kind of drive the car, take the wheel, if you will. And I was embarrassed. No, I don't get embarrassed very easily, but I was embarrassed to say the least. But like I said, everything happens for a reason. And as much as it was embarrassing, and you know what? I don't actually think it was embarrassing because you can only be embarrassed if you think that what you have done is embarrassing. You have the power, you have the control to navigate your emotions and decide for yourself whether or not you are embarrassed and you think that what you've done is embarrassing. So temporarily, I was embarrassed, just kind of pouring all my insecurities out there in that last episode. And I was like, oh, maybe I shouldn't have done that. However, like I said for the third time, I do believe everything happens for a reason. And one thing I really did like about recording that mini-sode was laying in my bed and holding this microphone here in my hand like I was chatting with you on the phone, like I used to do when I was a kid. And that really inspired something new within me that I wanted to experiment with the podcast. And I wanted to bring that familial energy and that nostalgia energy. And even just now sitting here, I have like a new name, Carolina's Corner. I don't want to go through a whole rebrand. I just truly don't. I just want to enter a season of experimentation and just a season of experimentation with my content and just kind of see where that goes. So I'm going to be bringing this podcast back down to bare bones. When I initially wanted to relaunch, because this is my third podcast now, you guys, when I originally wanted to relaunch, I wanted these episodes to be short snippets. I wanted them to be 15, 20, 25-minute episodes maximum. And I have this wound of worthiness and feeling unworthy, and like I constantly have to over deliver and over explain and just overabundance in everything that I do, because otherwise it's not good enough. Otherwise it's not impactful enough. It's not enjoyable enough if I'm not just like shoving as much into a piece of content as possible. And so with my experimentation, I want to just, you know what? I'm doing it. I'm doing it again. I'm announcing the things that I want to fucking experiment with. Okay, going back to my outline here, because I tried to make a fucking outline so that I wasn't going to go off the rails. Season 2, new setup. But I did want to talk a little bit about the importance of honoring your energy and honoring yourself, because we all have that capability. We can force ourselves to do things even if we don't want to do them. But I don't want to have that energy anymore. I don't want to take that course of action. I don't want to force myself. Now, I want to be careful here because there's a difference between effort and committing to something and doing something even though your ego maybe doesn't want to. And a really strong and clear example for me personally is my workouts. When I'm in my luteal phase and heading into my menstruation phase, my body, or my ego, I should say, thinks that my body wants to do absolutely nothing. I want to be careful in acknowledging the fact that there is a difference between our ego not wanting to do something and our intuition and our soul not wanting to do something. And so sometimes it takes a lot of work and a lot of effort, and I'm still struggling with that, trying to decipher between the two of them, trying to decipher what that fucking feels like in my body, what that sounds like in my intuition, because so often I go the ego route thinking that I'm listening to my intuition, but it's actually not. So I'm again in a season of relearning how to listen to myself and relearning how to trust that intuition. And I think this is something that I talked about at the beginning of the year in pausing and not rushing ahead and not trying to force things. And so I'm still in that season. I'm still in that season of trying to not rush things and really honoring myself. Now, I do want to put a little bit of a plug here. I have been using a new app to help me track my cycle. It's called Natural Cycles. If you follow me on Instagram, you know that I've been talking about it a lot. I absolutely adore it. And if you are a menstruating person and you are interested in Natural Cycles, it does have an annual or a monthly fee, but I have tried so many period tracking apps out there, like literally all of them. And something that I've learned with these apps is that if you're not paying for the app, the product of the app, you are the product. So your information is less secure. They're going to inundate you with advertisements because you are the product. The app itself is free, so they have to make money somehow. So they're making money through data, they're making money through advertisements, and so you are the product. And when I heard that and I learned that, I became so much more willing to invest in an app that I believe in and that I've done my research on in order for me to not be the product. And especially something as sensitive as my reproductive system, I don't want me to be the product for my reproductive system. And so when the whole Roe v. Wade thing was happening in the States, now mind you, I am Canadian, but still, like, we're pretty fucking close proximity to them. So it was only a matter of time, or hopefully, like, knock on wood, it doesn't happen here, but I wanted to make sure that my reproductive information was secure. So I stopped using all of those apps that I wasn't paying for, and I started using Natural Cycles. And I'm absolutely obsessed with it because it is not just a regular period tracker app. It's actually an FDA approved birth control method. Now, Matthew and I are actively trying to not have children, and cycle syncing has been something that I've been experimenting with for years now, but this is actually rooted in science. So I take my temperature every morning, and it really breaks down predictions incredibly well of when I'm going to be in my follicular phase, when I'm going to ovulate, and when I'm going to be in my luteal phase, which for me, somebody who struggles with PMDD, which is like a really intense version of PMS, it was really beneficial for me to know when that luteal phase is coming so I can start to be proactive about it instead of reactive about it. So I could rant and rave about Natural Cycles until the cows come home. If you have any questions, feel free to send me a DM or email me asking me anything you want to know about it. If you are interested in Natural Cycles, I do have a 20% off code for the annual subscription. So the annual subscription is $99 for the whole year, and then with the 20% off it ends up being $80, so $79.99. So if you go to bit.ly/authentic-cycle, you can take advantage of that discount. With that discount, you also get a free thermometer to help you take your temperature in the morning, so you don't have to go out there and buy a new thermometer or spend even more money. So the code bit.ly/authentic-cycle gives you 20% off an annual subscription and a free thermometer. You can see by the title of this episode, Crafting Your Love Story, taking control of your relationship rules. And I was initially inspired to create this episode when this viral video was going around on TikTok of this boyfriend moving out of the apartment with his girlfriend because he wanted to live with his brother, and this girl sharing that on her TikTok, and people just absolutely ripping her apart and saying that she was delulu and that this was the first step of them breaking up. And I just couldn't believe seeing people almost like vying for this. Like they were like craving, they were chomping at the bits to see this relationship fail. And I was like, what the fuck is wrong with people? First and foremost, every relationship should and does have its own set of rules, because what is something that I always fucking say? What works for one person is not necessarily going to work for every other single person. The same principle applies to relationships. Every relationship is going to have its own set of unique preferences and rules and what works for them and what doesn't work for them. And an example is like Matthew and I sleep separately. We don't share a bedroom together. We don't sleep together in the traditional sense. I mean, obviously, but in terms of like sleep, we don't sleep together. We don't sleep in the same bed. And this really works for us. And we started experimenting with this in our old place when we were living in Osborne Village. And we started to experiment it with one night. Matthew has a little bit of anxiety when it comes to sleep and not getting enough sleep and then not waking up in the morning. One night he came into our bedroom because at that time we were sleeping together in the same room, and he asked me, he was like, listen, I have a really important day at work tomorrow. I need to get a good sleep tonight. Are you okay with me sleeping in the guest room tonight? So tip number one, I guess, is like open communication and making sure that your partner feels safe and comfortable to express their needs to you. Crafting your own love story. And at that point in time, Matthew would fall asleep on the couch every single night. He would fall asleep on the couch watching TV every single fucking night. And I am a person who thrives in routine. So I would have my nighttime routine. I would do my skincare. I would go to bed. I would read. And then I would go to sleep. Now, I'm a pretty light sleeper. I didn't used to be when I was a kid. I remember my aunt telling me, because I lived with my aunt for a short period of time, telling me that one night the fire alarm went off in the apartment building and I was the only person who didn't wake up. So that's really great news for me. Could have died? No, not actually. But that's not the case anymore. I'm a pretty light sleeper now as I'm getting older, as I'm aging. You comfortable? Is that better? Okay. And so Matthew would fall asleep on the couch every single night. Then he would wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning, come crawling up the stairs, crawling into bed, waking me up. So now I'm fucking awake. It's 3 o'clock in the morning. Once I'm up, I'm up. So then I'm awake. And then not only has he woken me up, he now twitches in his sleep. So I'm awake, feeling kicking and punch and like literally twitching. Like he would punch me in the face and kick me in the legs. So he's ruined my sleep. Now he's keeping me awake. And now he's beating me in his sleep. No, actually, like let's not make something into something that it's not, okay? So I was getting shit sleep. So then when we were waking up in the morning, I was super fucking grumpy. I was exhausted. I wasn't my best self. And so sleep is so important. And if you're not getting a good sleep, you're not your best self the next day. Now imagine that happening over and over and over and over again. So when Matthew came to me and was like, "Are you okay with me sleeping in the guest room tonight?" Before he even fucking had the full question out of his mouth, I was like, please, please go sleep in the guest room tonight. I would love to have a night of good rest by myself without you punching and kicking and twitching and waking me up in the middle of the night. So that was our first experiment. It was one night. That ended up really working well for us. And what we noticed was because I wasn't sleeping well, I was getting so nitpicky in our relationship and I was picking fights and I was just, because I wasn't sleeping well. I was not sleeping well and it was taking a toll on our relationship and we didn't realize how much at the time. So then our second experiment was, and again, we talked about it, Matthew had asked, how would I feel if during the work week he slept in the guest room and then on the weekend we could sleep together? I said, absolutely, let's try it. Why not? What's the worst that could happen? We're great communicators. If one of us is feeling like it's not working or it's distancing us or whatever the fuck people might think, let's change it. So we experimented with that. Still sleeping together on the weekend. We would have shitty sleeps on the weekend when we actually had time to spend together. And then we were annoyed with one another because we weren't sleeping well. So then now we have this time to spend together to create memories, to hang out, to go do the things that we want to do, but we're annoyed with each other. So now we don't even want to do the things together. So then we sat down, we were like, what are we doing here? Like, why do we keep forcing sleeping together? Is it because other people expect us to? Which, by the way, that is a trend that has changed over the years. I don't know when. Maybe I should have researched it before I started hitting recording. But at one point, it was very normal for married couples to sleep in separate beds. I digress. And then I said, are we worried about what we think it's going to mean for our relationship? Are we worried that it's going to distance us? Are we worried that our intimacy is going to suffer? All of these things. And so we talked about it. And I am somebody that is very comfortable marching to the beat of my own drum. I have my entire life. And so I was like, I don't give a shit what other people think. I don't give a shit what other people say. This is our relationship and we have to find what works for us. If sleeping separately works for us and we are so much more in love with each other and we're getting good sleep, and so the next day we are able to actually love on one another instead of bickering with one another, then I think we should do that. So that's just an example of us creating different rules in our relationship than a lot of other people did. And it was a season of adjustment. When people started finding out that we don't sleep together, it created a bunch of awkward conversations and questions and all of that. We're like, no, like we're good. This just happens to work for us. Especially when we started house hunting to buy this house. We specifically wanted at least a 3-bedroom house because we knew we wanted to have a guest room, which we did in our old place. And we knew that I wanted a bedroom and we knew that Matthew wanted a bedroom. So 3-bedroom minimum was our requirement. And again, there were certain conversations with friends and family members. We just had to express that this is what works in our relationship, and other people don't have to understand it in order for it to have impact and in order for it to work. So this just goes back to that viral video that I was talking about. Like, why not? And the whole justification was that he wanted to live with his brother because they have a close relationship and the two of them never had the opportunity to just be roommates without living with their parents. So they wanted to experiment with that while they were young enough to, before they started having families and moving on with their lives, to have that experiment together, to have that experience together of living as roommates, as brothers. And like I said, the internet just roasted this poor girl, and I was like, okay, we gotta talk about this because it is a-okay to make your own fucking rules in your relationship. I have another example of us planning our wedding, but I think, like, just for the sake of recording time and me wanting to have these as short digestible episodes that you can listen to on like a 20-minute car ride, I think the sleeping separately is a good enough example for you to understand how to craft your own love story and the importance of crafting your own love story and making your own rules in your relationship. Because like I said, what works for one couple isn't going to work for every other single couple. I'm not saying you have to sleep separately. If sleeping together works for you and your relationship, keep doing that. It just doesn't work for us. And guess what? That's why we have our fucking relationship and you have your relationship. You do what you need to in your relationship and I'm gonna do what I need to in my relationship. Because like I said, at the end of the day, it is the two of you, or maybe more, but just, you know, for a traditional sense, let's say, because polyamory is very alive and well. But, you know, let's just talk about a monogamous relationship for now. At the end of the day, it's the two of you. And you two have to decide together what your relationship is going to look like, what your boundaries are, what works for you, what doesn't. And like I mentioned earlier, making sure that your partner feels safe enough and feels comfortable enough to express their needs to you, and that you don't take it personally, and that you don't take it like the roof is fucking falling. Again, going back to that viral TikTok video, she said that at first she was like, are we breaking up? Like, of course, her immediate and natural reaction was, why don't you want to live with me anymore? Like, what's happening here? Did I miss something? But then they talked about it because it's their relationship and they get to do what they want to do. If you're a loyal listener to the podcast episode, right now is probably where you're going to be expecting an authenticity challenge, and then I go into a card pull, and then I go into a weekly affirmation, and yada, 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 yada. We're not doing that anymore. If you really enjoyed it and you have feedback and it is something that you looked forward to in the episodes, I will bring them back. But to be completely honest with you, the inspiration behind those segments was that I was nervous the episodes weren't going to be long enough and weren't going to be valuable enough. And so I created those segments to make sure that even if the main part of my episode sucked, then I still had these other segments that I could rely on to bring value into an episode. But I am trusting myself, and I am trusting that my episodes are going to be valuable and juicy no matter how fucking long they are. And I'm really grateful for this YouTuber. I really enjoy her content. I'm going to give her a free plug here. Michelle B with a U, so it's Muchelleb, the letter B. She talks about organization and simplifying your life and sticking to habits and routines and productivity and self-care and mindfulness and all of the stuff that I fucking love talking about. And some of her YouTube videos are literally like 5 to 8 minutes long. And do you hear me complaining? No, because it's so chock full of helpful information and it doesn't need to be 20 minutes long in order for it to be worthwhile. So that is something that I am telling myself. That is something that I am trying to embody in season 2. But again, if it's something that you really enjoy doing, if I get enough feedback from my loyal listeners, then I have no problem bringing them back. But for now, I'm just, again, going to go back to bare bones, going to make it really simple and leave it for that. So I mentioned my Instagram. If you're not following me on Instagram, my new Instagram handle is Diary of Carolina Jimena, which you can find in the show notes below. I am experimenting or going to experiment, or I'm thinking about experimenting with something. I think it's going to be next week's episode though. So I guess I can kind of put a little bit of a teaser here maybe. But to be completely honest, I'm also giving myself free rein to change my mind if I don't want to talk about that next week. But I'm experimenting with what my relationship with social media is going to look like moving forward. And to give you a little bit of a glimpse in it is that I've already deleted TikTok off of my phone. B, it's November 17th. So this is going up next week on November 22nd, I think. And so if you are following me on Instagram and you've been seeing that I've been posting a bunch of reels for the past 2 weeks, those are all the reels that have been sitting in my drafts for months and months and months and months. And so I wanted to post them because once you delete Instagram off of your phone, all of your drafts get deleted as well. And I didn't want all of that content creation to go to waste. So that's why I've been posting all of these reels, because I'm also planning on deleting Instagram from my phone. I'm going to leave it there for now because, again, I'm probably going to talk about what my relationship with social media is going to look like moving forward next week. Until then, I love you so, so much. I don't really have any calls to action for you right now other than following me on social media, because we're rebuilding and we're going to see what this looks like and we're going to see what the content creation looks like moving forward. Okay, I love you. Bye.